What if I told you there's a database that can run SQL directly on your data frames, is as portable as SQLite, but built for analytics? It's called DuckDB. Let me show you how it works. In this example, in just a few lines of code, I created a data frame with some values in it. I then queried that data frame using a SQL statement. And then I turn the result back into a data frame and print the result. And then this is what you get. That's DuckDB. In this video, I'm going to break down what DuckDB is, how it works, and some of the cool things you can do with it. This video is sponsored by Convex. More about that later. DuckDB is a relational database management system, RDBMS, that's designed for analytical workloads. It supports standard SQL and it's embedded, meaning that it runs inside your program just like SQLite. There's no separate server. It supports both in-memory, temporary, and persistent disk-based storage. There's also quite a few extensions. It supports some custom SQL syntax, different file formats like JSON or Parquet, I'm not really sure, and remote protocols like HTTP or S3. There are APIs available for Python, R, and more, and that allows to blend SQL and programmatic data manipulation. Now, the development of this project started already in 2018, with version 1.0.0 being released in June of 2024. It's fully open source, under the MIT license, and the project is maintained by the DuckDB Foundation. Then there's also DuckDB Labs. It's an Amsterdam-based company that employs the core contributors and provides commercial support. Of course, the Netherlands is well known for its cheese and databases named after animals. This company is entirely owned by the team, which ensures its independence and also maintains its focus on open source principles. Then there's MotherDuck, which is a venture-backed company that builds a hybrid cloud local platform using DuckDB. So this business model is similar to early Red Hat, built a great open source tool and monetize support and services. There are different ways to install DuckDB. It's supported for all the major platforms like Windows, Linux, macOS, and you can install it through Python, pip, brew, apt, and so on. If you run a Python project like I'm doing here, and you use a dependency manager like uv, then you can simply install it by typing uv add DuckDB. Now, of course, in this case, I already have the package installed, but this means it's really straightforward and you don't have to install it in your global environment. It's going to be local to your project. Now, like I showed you before, with DuckDB, you can seamlessly transition between data frames and SQL. And that's also what you see in this very basic example that I showed you in the beginning of the video. So I'm creating a data frame here with a couple of values, and then I'm using duckdb.query on that data frame. And the way this works is that there is some Python magic involved here, in that I created this data frame and stored it in this variable, and then I refer to this variable in my SQL statement with this special SQL syntax. And DuckDB is going to explore the scope of this call and try to figure out where that data is. And then it finds this variable and then it's going to use that. And then when it does that query, it gets a result, which it can then turn into a data frame again, and then I can print the result. And then, like I showed you, this is what you get in that case. DuckDB is powerful because it lets you work with data using just one tool. If you're doing data analysis, you're probably already using data frames, but of course they can be tricky to manage and query if you're not really that used to them. On the other hand, SQL is great for querying data, but it usually means working with a separate database. With DuckDB, you don't have to choose. You can use SQL when it makes sense and stick to Python and Pandas for everything else. Here I have another example which is a bit more involved. In this case, I'm using duckdb.connect. This is going to create a database connection, an in-memory database in this case. And then what I do within that context is that I read a CSV file. This CSV file contains some random data. These are basically a bunch of employees, names, job titles, and salaries. And then after I've done that, I then register that relation, that CSV data, as an employees table using that connection object. And then I can query the data frame, or actually the internal representation of it in the DuckDB database, using a SQL statement. So then I select these columns from the employees table and filter on a salary that's larger than $125,000 and limit that to 3. Then what I do is execute that query and fetch the data frame, and then I print the result. Now, the nice thing about this is that we have both data frames and SQL queries in one tool, like I mentioned before. So it also means that if you want the full table again as a data frame, that's really easy to do. And then you can also apply a filter to the data frame using Pandas syntax and then print the result of that. So when I run this, then as you can see, this is what we get. So these are exactly the same because I'm actually applying exactly the same filter. But here I'm using a SQL query and here I'm using Pandas. So it's totally up to you which version you use where in your code. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And this is really how DuckDB simplifies working with data, by letting you seamlessly combine SQL, data frames, and Python. But once you've wrangled your data, what about building a modern app to use it? That is where today's sponsor, Convex, comes in. Just like DuckDB streamlines analytics, Convex makes building and scaling your backend effortless. It handles your database, serverless functions, real-time updates, all in one platform. Let me show you how it works. Let's say you want to keep track of a few simple metrics in a dashboard. So here I have a very basic piece of TypeScript code that allows me to retrieve metrics and insert metrics into the database. What's cool about Convex is that you don't need to develop an API or host a database. This is literally all you need. It's that simple. Now what's nice is that once you have this set up, you can directly access these functions in a web app, or you can use Python to access these functions as well. For example, here I use the convex package in a Python script. I then get the URL of my convex project from an environment variable. I create a client and I simply perform a mutation, which is to insert metrics. So when I run this, now actually the metric has been added to the database. And you can also see it appearing right here in the dashboard. It's now also really easy to access this data in a web app. So here I've created a simple React app that uses a query to retrieve the metrics by using Convex's API. And that's literally all it takes. And this is what it looks like. I've used a classic white background with black Times New Roman text. I'm going old school today. What's really cool though is that Convex handles data in real time. So let's say I create another metric here, let's say monthly sales, and I'm going to put a value of, let's say 10,000 euros, dollars, whatever, to this. And then I'm simply going to run the script again. So that's going to add the metric. And as you can see, when I switch to my dashboard again, I haven't changed anything. It automatically updates it. It's really incredibly simple. In short, with Convex, you don't need to be a seasoned backend developer. You get a scalable production-ready backend right out of the box with real-time capabilities. So it's great for real-time apps, AI integrations, and more. Convex gets out of your way so you can focus on delivering great features for your users. Get started with Convex today. Use the link in the video description and build your next app faster. Like I mentioned, with DuckDB, you can have either in-memory or persistent storage. However, there's a gotcha. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But here you see a very simple example of using an in-memory database. So I've already shown a similar example like this before. So I read the data from the CSV file, then I simply execute a query, fetch a data frame, and print the data. When you run an in-memory database like this, it means that the instance or the state of the database is going to be deleted when you close the connection. And that is as soon as you leave the scope of this context manager in your Python script. So essentially the job that you did here to read the CSV file, that data is not persisted to a database. You have to do the work every time you run the script. That may sound like a hassle, but it's also kind of a blessing in disguise for example, unit tests. An in-memory database can be really helpful for writing unit tests and making sure that the state at the start of your test is always the same. But the caveat is if you have a huge CSV file, then this may make your Python script very slow. You have to be careful with this. And there's another issue here in the code. You already see that Pylance is actually complaining about that, which is that employees is not accessed. But actually it is because it's right here in the SQL statement. But I'll talk more about that later on in the video. Now, if you are working with a huge database or you need to persist information and access that again in the next iteration of the script, then you shouldn't use an in-memory database, but actually use persistent storage. And that's also really easy to set up in DuckDB. So here I have a variation of the script that I just showed you that also has a DuckDB Connect context manager, but there I'm supplying a database path right here, and that's employeesdb.duckdb. And then what I do is I read the data from the CSV file like I did before. And now employees is actually persisted in the database. And then I can do things like insert a new record into the table, preview some data from the table just like before. So When I run this, then this is what we get. So you see we have a bunch of employees. And I've also added employee number 21, which is Alice, and she has a really low salary, actually. But because this is now persisted in a file, you can also see that DuckDB now created this file right here. So that means when I run this code again, now we have two Alices who are both severely underpaid. But well, they're managers, so who cares, right? Now, like I said, the caveat with in-memory database is that when you close the connection, basically you lose all the data. So if you do something like this, so I have a data dictionary here, but then I create a connection where I create a table, insert some things into the table, and then I create a new connection, and then I try to show all the tables. Well, what happens now is that basically there's nothing in there. And that is because this is an in-memory database. You close this connection, well, what you did here is going to be lost. So be careful about that. Another thing that's really nice that you can also do with DuckDB is actually run it in a Jupyter Notebook. Here I have an example of a notebook. What I did here is that in this first cell, I create a connection. So I can simply run this. And now I can simply run code that uses that connection. So for example, here I'm reading some data and then creating the table. And then I have a query where I select a job title and an average salary and then group that by job title. And then I can run this query and then we're going to get the result right in our Jupyter Notebook. And by the way, I've set the kernel to the local VM folder here. So I'm using a virtual environment and I'm using UV to manage the dependencies that are used in the notebook as well. So that's really nice. This is the PyProject file that I'm using. Now, as usual with a Jupyter Notebook like this, you always have to be careful because, of course, this first block is going to create the connection. So if you skip that for some reason, then, well, this is not going to work. So that basically means you need to make sure you run everything in order, or otherwise things are going to break. Another thing you can do is use threading to simultaneously insert into and read from a DuckDB database across multiple Python threads. Note that this is all within a single Python process, but if you want to, you can have a multiprocessing version of this. I've created a couple of examples to show you how this works. So here I have a multi-threaded version of using DuckDB, where basically I have loading data and querying a database. And then in the main function, I create some threads that query the database. And then when you run this, well, it's not that interesting, but basically you get this result. And similarly, you can also use multiprocessing to access the data using multiple processes. And that's what you see right here. So again, I load the data, but then instead of creating threads, I create processes. And then when I run this, this also works as expected. Now, it depends on your data need, whether you really need multiprocessing or multithreading. Typically, multiprocessing is more suitable for CPU-bound tasks. For I/O-bound tasks like database queries, you may prefer threading or async I/O. Anyway, if you want to learn how to incorporate software like DuckDB in your application while making sure your architecture remains clean and scalable, make sure to grab my software architecture checklist at arjan.codes/checklist. The link is also in the description of the video. And like I mentioned, there was some Python magic going on in how DuckDB accesses the data that you load in as a CSV file. Specifically, if you have a connection and you read a CSV file like I'm doing here, then I can execute a query and reference that value as a table directly. And personally, I don't really like this because this means that my IDE is going to complain about a variable that's not being used where actually it is. Because if I rename this variable, like I rename it to, I don't know, data, whatever, for the IDE, it doesn't matter because it assumes that this variable is not being used. But now when I run this, then of course, oops, that doesn't work. But if I change this back to employees, then we get the result as expected. So that is, in my opinion, not really a good way to do it. And though it may seem like a cool Python magic feature, I'm not really a big fan of this. Now, instead of doing this automatic registration of the data as a table, you can also do that manually. So here I have the same example, but here I'm actually doing a manual registration of employees. So here I'm reading the CSV file just like I did before, and then I call the register method on the connection to map that data to a table called employees. And then when I run this, of course, this gets exactly the same result. But now if I change this variable name to something else, it doesn't matter because the registration happens explicitly. So in my opinion, this is a better way to do it. It doesn't confuse your IDE and also makes clear how the data is exactly being used and where the mapping happens. So I recommend that you always register your data as a table explicitly, because that just makes your code more explicit. In fact, it would be even better if read CSV maybe had an extra argument that allowed you to define the name of the table in the DuckDB database. Then we wouldn't need this line, and it would still be explicit. And then we could simply change the variable name to an underscore, for example. So like I said, DuckDB really allows for this easy transition between DataFrames and SQL, which is really great. But it also has a couple of SQL extensions. I'm not going to go through all of them, but here are a few that I think are interesting. And what's nice about this is these are typically things that you will find in, let's say, heavier databases that actually run on a server like MySQL or PostgreSQL. But DuckDB also offers some of these things. Specifically, there are 3 that I think are nice, which are describe, explain, and summarize, which allow you to see all sorts of data about queries, tables, and entries in the tables. So what I'm doing here is I load again this employees.csv file into DuckDB, and then I register the data that I read as this table called employees. Then what I can do is describe, and then I simply have this SQL statement here, describe, and then the name of the table. You can also describe queries. And then that's going to give me some information about that particular table. Let me comment this out for the time being. I will show you that later. But when I run this, then as you can see, we get the result from describe, which is names of the columns, the type of the columns, whether they're nullable, etc., etc. So it's really easy to quickly see what's in your database. Another thing that's nice is explain. Now what explain allows you to do is you can take some SQL query, like the one that I have here, for example, and typically you would do this for a more complex query. So this is still relatively basic. But what explain does, that is going to tell you exactly how it's going to perform that query, what the steps are that are involved. And that's great for analyzing the performance of your query and see where some bottlenecks may occur. So let me comment this out. And now let's see what happens if I explain this query like so. Then this is what you see. So we get this nicely printed series of tasks. So it's going to hash groups, then it's going to do a projection, it will do a filter, and it will also read CSV files. So that's really helpful. And the way that I did this here is by using the explain method after the SQL query. And in my opinion, that's the easiest way to do this. Now you can also use SQL syntax for this. So I can simply write explain and then the query, similar to what I did with describe. But the problem is that then you get a SQL query result that you then need to do fetch on, for example, like this as a data frame. And then when I print this, then you're going to get some badly formatted result here. Or if you don't get it as a data frame, but simply as fetch all, then you're going to get this, which is of course impossible to read. So in my opinion, it's easier to just do the explain method that's already going to format it nicely for you and not use this SQL syntax. So this is way better. Now the final thing that I want to show you is summarize. And this is going to give you some extra information about a particular table. And it's also going to do things like calculate averages, percentiles, and things like that. So when I run this, then this is what we get. So you see we get name, job title, salary, we get the column type, we get the minimum and maximum value. So as you can see, the lowest salary is $50,000 or a bit more, and the maximum is 144,000. You can also see percentiles here, the count of the number of records, whether there are null values in the table. So this is a really easy way to quickly get an idea of what your data looks like without having to sift through a huge CSV file. In my opinion, DuckDB is a really nice tool. It brings a lot of extra features to Pandas and data analysis. I'm definitely going to play around with this more, but I'd also like to hear from you. What do you think about DuckDB? Which feature excites you the most? Have you tried using these SQL queries on data frames? I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. Now, as you saw, I used UV to manage dependencies of this example project, both the Python files as well as the Jupyter Notebook. UV is quite fast and it's really easy to set up. If you want to learn more about it, check out this video next, where I dive into the details. Thanks for watching and see you next time.